Hi, Dave Jones here again, carrying on with this instalment in theory lessons. This time we're going to look at harmonising the major scale. In other words, getting chords from all the 8 degrees of the major scale, and then we'll go into the minor. So hopefully you've got a grip on triads now, taking the root, the third, the fifth, or in the minor's case the root, the flat, third, fifth, and that gives you the major chord or the minor chord. Now we're looking at C major scale for this, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, triads can be built on every single degree of that major scale, or indeed off of a natural minor scale, and it's called harmonising the scale. And each new degree you start on becomes the root of the new triad, and then your triads are built up by taking 2 more alternate notes from that scale, and they become the third and fifth respectively of the new triad. And this gives you the chords that are in a key, and normally each chord is given a Roman numeral number. I'll come on to that to identify its position in the key. So if we were going to harmonise the scale of C major, what happens is the first chord is going to start on the note C, and we've already mentioned this if you're following the lessons. Again, it's worth printing the PDF off. I know I keep saying this, but it's all kind of written down there for you as well. So the first note is in the C major scale. We've got the C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. The first note C, we take that note as the root. We miss the next note in the triad. We take the third, E, and then we take the fifth, G. Gives us a C major chord. Now the next chord in the key is D something. I'll go into that in a minute. So your D chord. So you're going to take the D, that's your new root note. It's the second of the scale bit, it's the new root note because we're harmonising this chord. So you take the D, you miss the next note, the E, and you take the F, and then you miss the next note, G, and take the A. And that's the next chord in the key, chord 2. The next chord in the key, chord 3, starts on the E note. So you take the E note, the G note, and the B note. So you take E, miss F, take G, miss A, take B. And that's chord 3, starting on the E note. The next chord in the key starts on the F note, and that's your new root note, if you like. That's the name of the chord. So you take the F, miss the G, take the A, miss the B, take the C, and that gives you an F chord of some description. I'll go into the type of chords in a minute. Then the fifth chord is G. That's your fifth note that becomes your root. You take the G note, and you miss one, take the B note, and take the D note. There's your G chord. Then you build a chord on the A, which is the 6th degree, becomes chord 6. You take the A note, and then you take the C note, and then the E, missing out the B and the D respectively, and that becomes your chord 6. And chord 7, you start on the B note, you take the B note, miss out the C, you take the D, and then you miss out the E and take the F, and that gives you chord 7. Now the type of chord that you create each time depends on the interval between the root of each chord, the third of each chord, and the fifth of each chord. So if the interval between the root and the third, so in say C's case for example, the root note C, this is a bit of a stretch but this is just to show you, C 3rd fret A string, E 7th fret A string. If that interval is what's called a major third. Now a major third, if you go back to the first lesson on tones and semitones, a major third from C is 4 semitones. So C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, 4 semitones. If that interval between the root and the third is 4 semitones, then the next note, the fifth, is 3 semitones away from the E, so that'd be E, F, F sharp, G. So if it's got C, E, G, in other words 4 semitones, 3 semitones, so the first interval between the C and the E is a major third, and and then the next interval would be a minor third. It'll always work like that. That will give you a major chord. If the interval between the root note, in say D's case, building on the second degree, between D and the third note, F, there it is on the guitar, 5th fret, on the A string, 8th fret. That's only 3 semitones from D, D sharp, E, straight to F. That's a minor third interval. Then the interval between the F, in this case, and the next note, the A, that's a major third interval, 4 semitones between the F and the A. That will give you a minor chord. So basically speaking, if the distance between, it depends on the distance between the root, the third and the fifth in semitones as to whether the chord's major or minor. So that might sound a little bit confusing at the minute, but if you go back to the very first lesson, if you're following these along that we did with all the notes in music, if you go from, if you're making up a C chord, you've got C note, an E note and a G note. Between this C, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 semitones till we get to the E note. From this E note to the G, we've got 1, 2, 3 semitones. So we've got an interval there of a major third, which is 4 semitones, and I'll get the G there, and then a minor third, 3 semitones, and that will give us a major chord. The resulting chord will be major. We've built a chord on the second degree of the scale, on the D chord. So if we play a D and go up in semitones to the next note, which is the F, because we're omitting the E, we've got from D, we've got D sharp, E, F. That's 3 semitones. We'll go from the F to the next note, which is A, 1, 2, 3, 4 semitones. So between the root and the third is 3 semitones. That gives us a minor third interval. And between the flat third now, because it's a minor third, and the fifth is 4 semitones. That's a major third interval, but it's between the flat third and the fifth. So the resulting chord will be a minor chord. So, and that works for all the way up the scale. So the one chord, you've got root third fifth, C, E, G. On the two chord, you've got D, F, A. That's root flat third fifth. And if you carried this on, if you did it on the E, you've got E, G, B. That's root flat third fifth. So that's an E minor chord, chord 3. Chord 4 is F, A, C. That goes root third fifth, because there's a 4 semitone interval between the F and the A. That gives us F major. Chord 5, G, B, D, will be major third, minor third interval. So G, B, D will give you a G major. Chord 6 will give you A, C, E, and that will give you a minor third interval between the A, the root, and the third, a flat third interval. So that will give you a minor chord. Now, chord 7 is a little bit of a different animal. The spelling of the chord would be root flat third flat fifth, because there's a 3 semitone gap between the B note, the D note, sorry, I have to do this so I can finger it properly, the B note and the D note. There's a 3 semitone gap if you counted it along the strings, and there's a 3 semitone gap between the D note and the F note. It's called a diminished chord. Don't worry about it too much, it's not used that much, and technically speaking it's only half diminished because it hasn't got 7th in, but we'll go into that later on. So what happens is when you harmonise this scale from the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, you get one chord built on every degree of the scale, on the C, the D, the E, the F, the G, the A and the B, although that's not used very often. So you end up with a sequence. We don't have to go through this every time you do it. Oh, there's a cheating way which I'll show you in a minute. You end up with a sequence that goes C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and just to get this chord in, just so you can hear it, B diminished, and then resolves you back to C major again. So I hope you got that. I'll be doing a bit more on this with all the keys that we learnt so far. So I hope you've got that so far, and I'll see you in the next one.